You guys ready? The Senate will come to order. Members, please stand for the prayer. Today, we will pause for a moment of silent prayer and reflection, and following the prayer, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. The Secretary will call the roll by legislative districts. Senators present in alternate locations will have their response recorded by the front desk.
Senate District 1, Mark Johnson. Senate District 2, Paul Utke. District 3, Thomas Bach. No? Senate District 4, Kent Eakin. District 5, Justin Eichhorn. District 6, David Tomasoni. District 7, Eric Simonson. District 8, Bill Ingebretson. District 9, Paul Gazelka. District 10, Carrie Rude. District 11, Jason Rarick. District 12, Tori Westrom. District 13, Jeff Howe. District 14, Jerry Ralph. District 15, Andrew Matthews. District 16, Gary Dames. District 17, Andrew Lang. District 18, Scott Newman. District 19, Nick Friends. District 20, Rich Draheim. District 21, Michael Goggin. District 22, Bill Weber. District 23, Julie Rosen. District 24, John Jasinski. District 25, David Senjum. District 26, Carla Nelson. District 27, Dan Sparks. District 28, Jeremy Miller. District 29, Bruce Anderson. District 30, Mary Kiffmeyer. District 31, Michelle Benson. District 32, Mark Curran. District 33, David Osmick. District 34, Warren Limmer. District 35, Jim Abler. District 36, John Hoffman. District 37, Jerry Newton. District 38, Roger Chamberlain. District 39, Karen Housley. District 40, Chris Eaton. District 41, Carolyn Lane. District 42, Jason Isaacson. District 43, Charles Weger. District 44, Paul Anderson. District 45, Ann Rest. District 46, Ron Latz. District 47, Scott Jensen. District 48, Steve Swazinski. District 49, Melissa Franzen. District 50, Melissa Wicklin. District 51, Jim Carlson. District 52, Matt Klein. District 53, Susan Kent. District 54, Carla Bigham. District 55, Eric Pratt. District 56, Dan Hall. District 57, Greg Clausen. District 58, Matt Little. District 59, Bobby Joe Champion. District 60, Carrie Dietzick. District 61, Scott Dibble. District 62, Jeff Hayden. District 63, Patricia Torres Ray. District 64, Richard Cohn. District 65, Sandra Pappas. District 66, John Marty. District 67, Phuong He.
A quorum is present. We'll begin with executive and official communications. Members, a copy of the governor's proclamation is available at your desk. The next order of business is the ninth order of business, motions and resolutions. The secretary will read Senate Resolution number 1.
Senators Gazelka and Kent introduce Senate Resolution number 1, a Senate resolution relating to organization and operation of the Senate during the special session.
To the resolution, Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Resolution number 1 be adopted.
Further discussion on that motion, Senator Gazelka?
Mr. President, members, this is the resolution to organize in the second special session and is identical to the organizing resolution in the first special session.
Members, any further discussion on the Gazelka motion? This motion does require a roll call vote. Seeing no further discussion, the secretary will take the roll. Members in the retiring room, please come to the chamber to vote. Retiring room. Members in room 303, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in the President's office, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in room 323, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in room 237, please come to the chamber to vote. And members in room 206, please come to the chamber to vote. I will call on Senator Jasinski to report the votes of the members voting under Rule 40.7.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Anderson P. votes aye.
Senator Anderson P. votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Hall votes aye.
Hall votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Newman votes aye.
Newman votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Rosen votes aye.
Rosen votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Rude votes aye.
Rude votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Senjum votes aye.
Senjum votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Westrom votes aye.
Westrom votes aye. We'll call on Senator Frentz to report the votes of the members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Frentz.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. For Senator Bach, I report aye.
Bach votes aye. Senator Frentz.
For Senator Carlson, I report an aye.
Carlson votes aye. Senator Frentz.
For Senator Clausen, I report an aye.
Clausen votes aye. Senator Frentz.
For Senator Eaton, I report an aye.
Eaton votes aye. Senator Frentz.
For Senator Hayden, I report an aye.
Hayden votes aye. Senator Frentz.
For Senator Klein, I report an aye.
Klein votes aye. Senator Frentz.
For Senator Lane, I report an aye.
Lane votes aye. Senator Frentz.
For Senator Latz, I report an aye.
Latz votes aye. Senator Frentz.
For Senator Little, I report an aye.
Little votes aye. Senator Frentz.
For Senator Newton, I report an aye.
Newton votes aye. Senator Frentz.
For Senator Rest, I report an aye.
Rest votes aye. Senator Frentz.
For Senator Sparks, I report an aye.
Sparks votes aye. Senator Frentz.
And for Senator Wickland, I report an aye.
Wickland votes aye.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All members having voted, who have the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 67 ayes and 0 nays, the resolution is adopted. The Secretary will read Senate Resolution Number 2.
Senators Gazelka and Kent introduce Senate Resolution Number 2, a Senate resolution relating to notifying the House of Representatives and the Governor that the Senate is organized.
Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Resolution Number 2 be adopted.
To that motion, Senator Gazelka.
Mr. President, members, this notifies the House and Governor that the Senate is duly organized.
Any further discussion on Senate Resolution Number 2? Seeing none, this does not require a roll call. So all those in favor of Senate Resolution Number 2, say aye. Opposed, say no. We will take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. The resolution is adopted. The Secretary will read Senate Resolution number 3.
Senator Nelson introduces Senate Resolution number 3, a Senate resolution relating to urging the governor to exclude public schools from any further executive orders issued subject to the emergency powers in Minnesota Statutes Chapter 12.
Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I move that Senate Resolution number 3. Hang on one second. Thank you. This is Senate Resolution number 3. I move that we lay it on the table.
Senator Gazelka moves that we lay Senate Resolution number 3 on the table. All those in favor, say aye. Oppose, say no. We'll take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. The Secretary will read Senate Resolution number 4.
Senator Abler introduces Senate Resolution number 4, a Senate resolution congratulating Dave Hoagland of Anoka, Minnesota on his 100th birthday.
Senate Resolution number 4 will be referred to the Committee on Rules and Administration. The Secretary will read Senate Concurrent Resolution number 1.
Senator Gazelka introduces Senate Concurrent Resolution number 1, a Senate concurrent resolution relating to Minnesota's peacetime emergency, terminating the peacetime emergency pursuant to the authority under Minnesota Statute Section 12.31, Subdivision 2, Paragraph B.
Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. Senate Concurrent Resolution number 1 has to do with removing the governor's emergency powers. As you're aware, every 30 days that he extends them, we have to be called back into special session, and until the Senate votes to remove them and at the same time the House concurs with that and also votes to remove them, those emergency powers continue. So this resolution is the part that we take in the Senate to remove the emergency powers. And just remember, members, that this has been the longest peacetime emergency powers ever in the state of Minnesota. And I would say that yes, there is a pandemic, but no, there is no longer an emergency. When this first came into being, we knew that we had to increase the personal protection gear for individuals. We had to make sure that we had enough beds available in case there was a big spike or a big surge. We had to prepare, and the governor, I did support the governor having those first emergency powers to get us into that place. But as time has gone on, we have organized, we have everything in place. And so we would say there is a pandemic, but there is no emergency. And so that's why, members, today we are asking you to vote to agree with this, that it's time for emergency powers to end. Every day I get a number of how many people passed away because of the virus. And as you all know, it's almost always people that are over 70 and primarily people much older in nursing homes. The number today that I got is 2. 2 people that passed away because of this. And so as we look at this, members, giving the governor the emergency powers means that he decides whether schools will be open this fall or not. Not your local school district, not your school administrators, but the governor. And we know that we need kids back in the classrooms. We know that schooling is essential for our kids. The governor under emergency powers gets to decide whether businesses are open or not. The governor gets to decide that you must wear a mask rather than wearing a mask because you think it's wise. So there's many things that the governor has emergency powers over that we're saying that must end, and we need to get back to the place where the House and Senate are in equal footing with the executive branch, and we work through all of the issues that are before us. And let me say, I've also gotten some responses from people, if we don't end the emergency powers, we shouldn't do a bonding bill, we shouldn't do tax relief for Minnesotans. And I just want to say those are separate issues. The bonding bill was something we couldn't get done during regular session, but that's all the wastewater infrastructure, that's all the roads and bridges money that helps Minnesotans across the entire state. And the tax bill is provisions to help the ag community, small business owners, et cetera. So we're going to move forward with those. We'll maybe have conversations later on today, but we really have to wait for the House to pass those before we even consider them. But those are not linked in my mind. So today, members, with this resolution, I would encourage you all to support us and tell the governor that let the legislative branch do their job.
Senator Gazelka, do you have a motion to adopt Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 1?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate Concurrent Number 1 be adopted.
Further discussion on the Gazelka motion? Senator Isaacson.
Well, Mr. President, I appreciate the clarification. I think that's good to have that conversation, and I think it's good that we have this conversation. But I would believe that this resolution is akin to sticking our head in the sand. The number of cases have gone up in the last couple weeks, some as much as 800 a day. And while the deaths may be lower, and that might be something to triumph as a proof that this is going away, I would just encourage you to look over our borders in almost any direction to see that states that have taken a chance at laxening their rules, that have taken a chance at pulling back, thinking that we can open the doors, are clearly paying the price for it now. And they're not paying the price for it just economically. They're paying the price for it with people's lives. I think our governor has done an amazing job of navigating this process. Making comments like this is the longest one we've ever had doesn't really make a lot of sense other than stating a fact. I'm not sure that has any bearing on whether or not it should continue or whether there's a pandemic that still exists. There is a crisis. We have a real problem right now. And our state, in many ways, is a bit of an outlier right now in how low it is, which is a testament to the efforts by our governor and members of both parties in making the right choices for our state. And I think we should stay that course. I can't imagine why we would support this when our governor is doing an excellent job in putting us in a position to survive this with the minimum amount of damage. I also believe that when it comes to schools, we still have some decisions to make, and masks for that matter. You know, the majority leader talked about how the governor has got the sole decision to do masks and you got the sole decision to do schools. And that's an interesting way to characterize it, as if he's sitting in his mansion by himself, twiddling his thumbs, wondering what he's going to do today. Maybe I'll close the schools. Maybe everybody should wear masks. When the reality is far different from the way you characterized it. There are really smart people with kids and families, really smart people in and out of our government that are advising the governor all the time on this issue. I'm not sure, even if they open up, that I'll send my kids back to school. I'm concerned about that myself. I have people in my family that are susceptible. I watch what's happening in Florida and Arizona and Texas, where parts of Texas, they mandate masks. 49 states currently still have an executive order system going on with emergency powers. The president does as well. This is just, to me, it feels a bit partisan rather than actually based on sound science and policy. And that's something I struggle with. I don't understand in this situation why this is the thing that we'd be focused on when there are so many more important issues right now facing us about bonding, police reform, those kinds of things. So I'm just profoundly disappointed. Disappointed in the majority leader, disappointed in this resolution. I expect more of us, and I hope that we find ourselves in a position down the road where we can make some real choices and do some real good for our state, instead of arguing about whether or not we think the governor is too powerful when he's still acting well within the mandate of our Constitution well within the mandate of the legislature and the way our citizens act. And by the way, just takes a quick Google search to know how the citizens of Minnesota feel about how he's doing. It's pretty good. So I'm disappointed, and I wish we'd withdraw this resolution, and I would encourage everybody a no vote, and I ask for a roll call.
A roll call has been requested. Roll call granted. Members, I have a lengthy list of members who would like to speak. Next on the list is Senator Ralph, followed by Senator Bigham. Senator Ralph.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to take a moment to reflect on the fact that the governor made a declaration of peacetime emergency. I believe the good senator from Brainerd spoke about that. I want to go a little deeper into this. As of today, the positive cases to testing ratio, and that is a number that we can actually rely upon because we know how many tests we've given and we know how many cases are positive. That ratio today was 5.5%. That's 0.055. At the highest level during the time that COVID has been present, the ratio of positive tests to the testing was at 12%. Now, people will say that, oh my gosh, the cases are going up again, and they are. But what they fail to acknowledge is that so are the number of tests that are being taken. And in terms of real numbers, the cases have been declining in terms of the actual percentage of tests taken versus positive tests. I want to add another thing. Let's take a look at, and I'll touch back on another statistic that governs this. The percent of our population in the state of Minnesota that has tested positive is 0.773%. Think about that. Less than 1% of the population has tested positive for COVID as of today. ICU beds. Today, ICU beds that are treating COVID patients are at a record low of 114. That's statewide. That is down from a high of 263 on May 30th. Hospitalizations, there's been a slight uptick, but that is 133 as of today, down from 364 on 5/28. You can see where this is going, folks. Again, the total population number of cases today is 0.773%. Let's talk about why do we have the emergency declaration. The emergency declaration was intended to do a couple of things. First of all, we wanted to push off the peak of cases that we expected to have happen so that we would have time to get emergency supplies in place, to prepare emergencies to be able to handle the surge of ICU cases, to provide ventilators. That's all been done, folks. We have an ICU capacity right now within 24 to 48 hours that will be double the number of beds for ICU total that are in use. Rough numbers, 1,000 versus over 2,000. I want to talk a little further about the models. Right now, the governor is taking advice from the experts in the field. There have been 3 or 4 different models that they have used. There are several other models available. None of them agree. But one thing that is consistent, none of them have been anywhere near accurate. They have dramatically overstated what is going to come. So I think when we think about this, we have to ask ourselves, What are we using to base our decisions on? Is this good science? Is it good data? Yeah, there's a lot of unanswered questions about COVID, but are the answers something that we need an emergency declaration to answer? So I think what we have to do is think very carefully about why we have the declaration of emergency still in existence at this point. I won't speculate as to anyone's motives. I simply say that from my standpoint, and I believe from the standpoint of people that I have talked to, and there are many, that we have ended the need for the emergency to be dealt with on the basis of one person making decisions, whether our kids should go back to school, whether businesses should be open, what businesses should be open. And the inconsistencies that we have seen in what businesses can be open is dramatic. I will give a very simple example. According to the current guidelines, racetracks are not allowed to be open. Yet, there are at least 6 in Minnesota that are holding regular events with no social distancing in violation of the governor's order. Is there anything being done about it? No. In fact, one of the racetrack owners said, well, I guess I've lived a good life. If they want to shut me down, fine, let them come and shut me down. So we have to understand, folks, that there's inconsistencies here. Terrible inconsistencies. And they all have arisen because we have emergency orders that take a one-size-fits-all approach in terms of definition, but in terms of enforcement, they do not. It is time to get back to normalcy as much as we can. Our businesses are suffering. Our children are suffering. I talked to a second-grade teacher yesterday from Buffalo, Minnesota. She said that when she asked the kids what they missed most, and she talks to her students, they said, your hugs. These kids, especially the grade school kids, they need that interaction. They need that society. We need to get back to normal. I encourage a yes vote on this resolution. Thank you very much.
Next on the list, I have Senator Bigham, followed by Senator Benson. Senator Bigham.
Thank you, Mr. President. And, you know, I've been here, done that. This seems like we're doing Groundhog's Day again, but so allow me to reiterate a couple things. Same with 30 days ago, President Trump still has his peacetime emergency. 49 out of 50 states still have their emergency peacetime orders. This unprecedented time calls for a response that can address rapidly changing conditions, and that Governor Walz has done. You know, the testing rates are phenomenal, and they're phenomenal because of the emergency orders under this peacetime order that have allowed the governor to create partnerships with the Mayo Clinic and the University of Minnesota to be the leader in testing in the nation. The testing rate is great. That's something to applaud, and I give kudos to the governor on that. But the positive rates is what I think is the most concerning, and those are trajectorying upwards. Another couple things I want to remind the members and the viewing public about is that the peacetime emergency has done a lot to allow us to adjust to meeting the needs of Minnesotans during this time when there is no playbook for this. I'm a football fan. I know the governor is. I know Senator Isaacson is. A lot of football fans here. There's no playbook when it comes to a pandemic, Mr. President. I think you like football too, if I remember correctly. The emergency peacetime order has allowed the State Emergency Operations Center to be fully activated and being able to receive $1.7 million of federal funds to be able to meet the needs for local emergency managers and help with some of those expenses based on COVID. We've also been able to use that emergency command center to replenish the stockpile from the National Strategic Stockpile. For relating to Health and Human Services, it has allowed folks to have waivers on programs that have federal requirements so that they can provide services to some of our most vulnerable Minnesotans, Mr. President, and that is important, and that's resulted in over $50 million a month in federal funding. It also has created flexibilities for nursing homes, mental health services, disability services, child care centers, to be able to deal with this unknown COVID response. Again, there is no playbook for this, so we need these flexibilities, and the governor needs to be able to adjust very quickly to these times. You know, we've already spoke about education and being able to close the schools down to give teachers, educators, school districts the timing and ability to do distance learning, and that discussion needs to be ongoing, and there needs to be flexibility. There needs to be communication with the local school districts, and going into the fall, making sure that we're able to keep the students safe, but also staff. Again, I don't need to reiterate about testing. There's today, it was 768,989 tests completed since the beginning of COVID, and again, that has to do with the emergency powers being able to collaborate with our partners at the U and partners at Mayo Clinic. You know, as a local elected official, procurement is always a timely process, and the frustration that I know I can relate to from back in the day with mayors and county commissioners, it has allowed them to have the flexibility to speed up that long and onerous procurement process as well. So I just don't understand the politics that get played in this game. We have a lot of things that Minnesotans are expecting, Mr. President. They're expecting jobs from a bonding bill. They're expecting us to do our job, which I've repeatedly said, a lot of this stuff should have been done during regular session. It wasn't. We keep having to come back here because it seems like they keep moving the ball. It's like nothing is really getting taken care of, Mr. President, because it's like we have these perpetual games that are being played, in my opinion, and it's not appropriate. Minnesotans are sick and tired of it. They want to be safe, Mr. President. They don't want politics being played with their schools, with their long-term care facilities, with their local governments receiving money. All of this could have been done in a process with committees, and you know, it just seems like it's a very difficult time, but we should be setting aside the politics, let the governor and President Trump do their thing where they can quickly react to this unprecedented virus, this very infectious virus that we need to be able to keep safe, our Minnesotans safe from, and be able to get some sort of normalcy back. But we do that by not being political here and just doing the job that we are sent here to do. So let's do it, Mr. President.
Next on the list, I have Senator Benson, followed by Senator Abler. Senator Benson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Wanted to correct something that Senator Begum said. We are not here today because of a bonding bill. The only reason we're here today is because the governor had to call us back to extend his emergency powers. So if we can get police reform and a bonding bill and a tax bill done concurrent with the requirement that the governor call us back, I think the people of Minnesota would like that very much. But we were not called back for a bonding bill. I saw that in the press as well. Are they going to get done what they're supposed to get done? If the governor wanted to call us back when there was agreement, it probably wouldn't be today. The reason we're here today is because the governor wants to extend his emergency powers for another day or for another 30 days. COVID is still very serious. But emergency powers give the governor's decision the force of law without the benefit of public debate, without the benefit of us as legislators whose job it is to make law, to appropriate money without having say, without public discourse. You want to talk about whether or not schools should be open? How helpful would it be to have language in front of us so that we could have a robust debate where parents could hear the information that the governor is using to make his decision, that the entire public could know the science that the governor's depending on as he looks at a mask mandate? That would be incredibly beneficial if the governor would engage, so that as these difficult decisions are made with the force of law, the legislature, where it is appropriate that laws are debated, have a say, a stake in the decisions that are being made. Mr. President, could you, if Senator Kent would answer some questions, please?
Senator Kent will yield. Senator Benson.
Thank you. Mr. President and Senator Kent, what criteria do you think the governor should use for ending his emergency powers?
Senator Benson, can you please repeat the question for Senator
Thank
Kent?
you. Senator Kent, what criteria do you think the governor should use to end his emergency powers?
Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know there's been a lot of discussion that the emergency powers for the governor are usually used in the case of short-term emergencies, or those are the ones that we're most familiar with: floods, natural disasters, things like that. And this is unusual. Certainly, this is a historic and unprecedented emergency in our state. And in conversations with the administration and in conversations with our colleagues, we've had a lot of discussion about what goes into this emergency and why the response is needed. So to answer Senator Benson's question, I think we need to look at the kinds of metrics that we've all been talking about. What sort of risk are we at? How badly is it needed that we are able to function quickly? Where are we in terms, and they've been very clear. I mean, for people who have followed the health department's updates, I believe Senator Ralph earlier talked about the positivity rate. If I recall correctly, I'm doing this off the top of my head. They said we should be concerned when we get to about 5%. Well, guess what? We're at about 5%. When you look at what's gone in other states, these things change fast. And I will point out that we are on our third session now, not being able to get together on a few really important matters for the people of Minnesota. So I think the measures need to be, where are we in terms of the numbers? Are we confident that we can adequately take care of the people of Minnesota and their health and their safety with the legislature's involvement, or not?
So,
And at this point, I think we've answered that question. We are not ready.
Mr. President,
Senator Benson.
so Senator Kent, so as long as we're above 5% positive testing, you believe the governor should maintain his emergency powers?
Senator Kent will continue to yield. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would respond to my colleague that I said several factors, and it is these types of metrics that public health officials are using to identify the risk. The positivity rate is one of them. We've talked about hospitalizations and ICU use and deaths. We also know those are lagging indicators. So if we're seeing cases increase right now, we will very likely see those other numbers going up in 2 to 3 weeks. So these are the types of numbers. I didn't say exclusively it was a positivity rate of 5%. So we should rely on the advice and the science and the data that we get from the professionals.
So,
Senator Benson.
Mr. President, so what I'm hearing is there's nothing specific. It's intuition. And I don't think intuition is very clear to the people of Minnesota. I agree. I used doubling days. That's what MDH was using. Now they've switched to 5% as a number. That's fine. We're going to have a hearing and have an explanation as to why we moved from doubling days to percent. and that information will become apparent to the public as we go through that. Our peak day, we had 37% of our Metro ICU beds occupied by COVID. We're nowhere near that now. Our hospital systems are managing their bed capacity. We know that they can flex their elective procedures. They do it during influenza. We believe that things are going to get worse again in the fall. And when that happens, or if that happens, the governor should reinstate some of these authorities. The flexibility that we put in with waivers, we actually put into law now. So to keep drawing down federal funds, the feds know that the governor and the legislature are in agreement. So members, there is a way to do this, but we don't need to have a governor's decision as the force of law when there is a serious circumstance, but not necessarily emergent. If things become more serious in the fall and an emergency renews and the numbers get worse and we cannot control in our long-term care facilities infections and death rates, but for now, Minnesotans would prefer to be asked to do the right thing than to be told or threatened. Minnesotans will do the right thing when they're asked. I have every faith that if we repeal these powers today, Minnesotans will encourage each other to do the right thing.
Senator Kent, and then Senator Abler. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to respond because I believe Senator Benson inaccurately characterized what I said. I did not talk about intuition. I talked about using data from scientific public health sources to help make these decisions. And I think that was an inappropriate characterization. The CDC, the Department of Health, there's a lot of hard statistical information here. We are learning more about this disease every day. And so I just want to be clear that I was saying this would be data-driven. Thank you.
Next on the list is Senator Abler, followed by Senator Franzen. Senator Abler.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. And maybe it's Groundhog Day. I feel like I've been on this floor saying kind of the same thing for, I don't know, 17 times, Mr. President. You've been keeping track? Oh no, here he goes again. Minnesota is an amazing state. We have a resilient people who actually care a lot about each other. And when there's a problem, they rise to the occasion and they do something about it. And we can discuss as many times as you want how much we should have done, who did what when, what did people know, what did they intend. This is my view. The governor has forever intended well. I'm not sure he's always gotten the advice that was as broad as it might have been, and that's affected some of his judgments, like closing Main Street in Anoka so that you couldn't go to a little shoe store while you still could go to Walmart, Target, or some other big stores where they were actually at much more risk. We talked about it a good number of times. And so we went through all that. Frankly, many stores in my district and around the state are closed because of central decisions made that affected all of Minnesota, including some places where there was not one case in the county, yet stores were forced to be closed because of these executive orders. So we went through all that. And we learned, and now we understand transmission, we understand testing, we understand it's really the seniors that are at risk and people with a pre-existing health condition, like 99%. That's not a made-up number, it's that big of a percentage. And a few random individuals that come to harm. And so the question is, how much power do we need for the governor to have? And in my notes, I have only one phrase, Mr. President: free men and women. Minnesota is a state proud of its history of being free men and free women. We have people who have gone far away and served yet in Minnesota to protect that freedom. Some have actually died for the privilege we have to stand here and speak as we have in our several ways, expressing our opinions, and I think it's phenomenal. And so, with his good intention, the governor made decisions early on, and a lot of us agreed. We gave him $500 million to spend on the things that mattered, but we've moved along. And what I've discovered is, in many cases, the governor has been ahead, or at least out of sync, with Minnesotans and where they are. Closing everything in Biwabik was really not a point. There was no point to that. That didn't save one life. It didn't solve one infection. And so Biwabik endured. There's less stores open there and in every little town in Minnesota, including in Anoka. And so now we're here today discussing the same thing again. And now the topic is, shall we do face masks? And I'll tell you, Governor, Minnesotans, at least at where I live, aren't ready for mandatory face masks. People come in my office, they're wearing a mask, they don't wear a mask. If you're vulnerable, you better wear one because it might help, but that's the data, it might help. But I want to point out, even though you can't blow a candle through a face mask, the viruses can go right through. You can't push a log through a chain link fence, but a mosquito can fly through that. That just proves you can't push logs through a chain link fence. But it doesn't mean that the people are truly safer and that those viruses aren't going to go around. And so I want to caution, I think it's time for us to take this back in our own hands. And I don't think the people in my district are going to be happy about a face mask mandate. I just wanted to point that out because a lot of them have said, tell the governor not to do face masks. This is my one chance to tell you that. And so if they feel at risk, they will. So how do we handle pulling out of the COVID thing? We handle it by what we've been doing in the human services arena. Today, I'm going to invite members to vote on the 15th permanentizing of executive orders about human services. We did 14, we'll do one more today. And so we can move into a post-executive order mode. If there's executive orders you need for economic development, for the Department of Health, and so on, we can approve those and be a part of the process. This is designed, the legislative process is a two-way, three-way street. You have a House, a Senate, and a governor. And the governor, I still believe, is well-intended, but it's time to go back to the three-way dialogue and actually run things, which way, by way of example, the human services arena has done. Human services does not need the executive order to continue. Everything will be going forward just right. And they're beginning to get the infections under control in the nursing homes. The group homes are nearly COVID-free, and we're squared away there. So it's time to restore Minnesota to the Minnesotans and let us be free men and free women. And with that, I urge members to vote yes today on the resolution. Thank you very much.
Next on the list is Senator Franzen, followed by Senator Matthews. Senator Franzen.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, members, for all of your input and thoughts. I would start with the notion that we're no longer in an emergency. If you turn on the radio or turn on the news or read any paper, any publication, any time of the day, any day of the week, you will hear about 5 states surging in the last week: California, Texas, Mississippi, Florida, and Arizona. They're not all red states, they're not all blue states. They're states that have, unfortunately, rising in COVID cases, and luckily they're not across our border, but that could change at any moment in time. The notion that we are no longer in an emergency is a false notion. If you look at the news, the world reports, the World Health Organization, there is no vaccine yet. There's widespread community contraction. And that's one of the main reasons why we have to be on high alert until we get it into control, until we can do at least a minimal contact tracing. But as long as there's going to continue to be community interaction and contagion across our community, we don't have this pandemic under control. And I like to see the glass half full, but I don't think we're there yet. And I'm not a healthcare expert. I'm a state senator. I try to keep up with the news. There's also this notion that the governor decides what can remain open and closed, and that only he can decide whether our school districts will be open. On my way here to work today, I was talking to a school board member, and we were having a really frank conversation about how serious this is for our schools and our kids. Today is my little boy's 5th birthday. Philip is supposed to go to kindergarten this fall. I don't know he will be able to do that. I don't know if I'll feel comfortable sending him to school. I know he'll be okay. I know I'll do everything in my power so he doesn't fall behind. But this is an equity issue too, members. We need to make sure that our kids, every kid, is able to go back to school safely. That every worker is able to be asked to go to school with full knowledge that they will be safe in the workplace. We're all in it together. We sometimes forget that. If we can't have our kids go to school, how can we expect any one of us to go back to work? If we want this economy to open up, we need kids to go to school. We need parents to be able to go back to work knowing that their kids will be safe. And until then, we are not out of this emergency situation. And if we want to wait till Governor Walz makes a decision, that's because we have put our head in the sand. And I say we as a body. Because instead of having the last 3 hearings that I was part of in the last couple of weeks, multiple hours, I think upwards of 5 hours each day, that we were having important discussions about what happened in Minneapolis, in St. Paul, and across our state, given the death of George Floyd. That was a great introduction to what we should be doing. We weren't discussing bills. Putting that aside, we never once discussed a bill of how to open schools up. We never once discussed a bill of how to open up businesses. And a lot of us have introduced bills, even including myself, on how to do that safely. To have teachers come and talk about how they feel uncomfortable and exposed to COVID when they have to be looking and dealing with kids, upwards of hundreds of kids a day, if they go back to school. Lucky, many of us can go work from home and not be exposed to one single person all day. But that's not the reality of what we're asking our teachers to do. That's not the reality of many people who are going back to work in unsafe conditions because we do not have this pandemic under control. And to think that we do, I remember years ago when we said hope is not a strategy. Well, neither is denial. We need strategies. We need solutions. And we have the best and the brightest in the state of Minnesota. We are lucky that we get to legislate in such a state. But a few days ago, we had the highest COVID cases, about 800 or more, in one single spike that we had since May. Is that having the pandemic under control? I think not. Going back to schools, we have the best and the brightest. We have companies who are spending money to give to equity issues across the state, especially in light of George Floyd's killing. Well, let's talk about this equity scenario where kids who are not in an environment where they can learn with long-distance learning will not learn. Let's not ignore that. They will not learn because they're expecting someone to homeschool who is not prepared to homeschool. I'm not prepared to homeschool, but I might be asked to do so. And to say that the governor's going to have that ability, that authority, is a cop-out. I want to be come to work here with you all to figure out how we do that safely. Maybe it's we pick a few grades, pre-K to 5th grade, which is 4 years old to 10 years old. Those kids need to have interaction for what some of my colleagues here mentioned earlier. They miss their friends. They miss learning. They might be bored of us. They might be bored of their little brothers and sisters. They might not be in a safe situation at home. They might not have food. We can't ignore those equity issues by saying the governor's going to solve our problems, or by expecting him to say no to opening schools and then pointing a finger. It's his fault. No, members, it's our fault. Let's do the work. If we're going to complain about the status quo, let's change it. It's in our power. We all have the same election certificate. We can bring the great companies that we have that are their buildings are empty. Maybe they can help us with the older kids to socially distance and use some of their space. Maybe instead of making a donation, to something that's good for their PR, they can actually help fix this problem that our state is going to have. Because you know what? They need workers. And if our kids are not going to be educated, not only will they not learn, they won't graduate, and the workers will not be there for those companies to draw from. So they have a stake in this just as much as all of us. It's not just about numbers, but we're broke. Our surplus is gone. Our reserves are gone. COVID took it from us. And thank God that we were in a good footing in Minnesota, because we've talked about giving all that money back, but that money actually saved us. But money's not going to get us out of this woodwork. We're going to have to come together. And to point fingers is not going to solve the inevitable. I can just see it. Governor Walz decided to close schools. It's his fault. Well, I'm not buying it. It's our fault for not coming together in committee and talking about the real issues that need solving. How can we find creative solutions to this pandemic? The world is watching because the world is feeling it. I refuse to point fingers on one person or one administration. I want to be part of the solution. I hope you do too. But we are still in an emergency, Senator Gazelka. We are. Let's acknowledge that from the get-go. We might disagree on the science. We might disagree on how the governor's handling it, but I think he's handling it pretty well. And I was with you, Senator Gazelka. Last time you were here 4 weeks ago, I voted with you to end the emergency. But 4 weeks later, nothing has changed, and I do not feel comfortable to opening back our state, not drawing federal dollars, and not giving our state the flexibility it needs to weather this storm. So I'm not going to be with you. I'm going to be with my son, because I am not going to use him as a political pawn. He needs to go back to school. He needs to go to school. And I want other kids like him to be able to do so as well. So, members, yes, we all want to go back to normal. Boy, do we want to go back to normal, but I don't know what normal will look like. If you talk to some legislators or some doctors or some health experts, this is going to be like the flu, potentially. I'm not an expert. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But if it is, that we will need to have a flu shot, a COVID shot every year. Members, this is a new reality that we need to find a way to live with and surpass. I hate masks just as much as anyone else. But I will wear them. I will wear them if it's going to get us out of here, if it's going to help us recover. And I've had many emails, just like a lot of you, of people wanting to go back to school, wanting to go back to work. And some people who say this is a Minneapolis and the Twin Cities issue, that's what the COVID is, that other counties don't have COVID. Members, COVID is everywhere, and it will remain everywhere until we acknowledge the fact that we are not out of this emergency, that this is a worldwide problem. Let's stop politicizing and weaponizing a pandemic. That does nobody any good. And I'd rather be here today, on the day of my kid's 5th birthday, spending time with him outside, than debating whether we're in an emergency, because I think even he acknowledges that we are. So, members, the U.S. has 3 million cases. 3 million cases. And it's not about to stop. Why did we get out of the World Health Organization? Why did our president take us out as a nation? Because we're not leading. And it's easier not to acknowledge reality. Again, denial is not a strategy. I hope, members, that you think really strongly about supporting the extension of this emergency power. And frankly, I know lots of people in my district want me to vote against it. But I thought that was the right path last time, but I haven't since seen any change in the wind. Thank you, members.
Senator Gazelka, followed by Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. President. To that point, and to Senator Franson, If you remember, members, it was never about stopping the virus. And if you remember, Senator Franson talked about 3 million people getting it. Our experts have said that it'll likely go through our population, and many, many people will get it. And so it's not putting our head in the sand, it's accepting the reality that this is a real virus, that it is a pandemic, but that we can learn to live with the realities of what we have. And so putting the head in the sand is thinking that we can shut everything down and that will somehow stop this virus. And so we need to listen to the tools that we've been given. Wash your hands, cover your cough. If you're sick, stay at home. You have a mask that you can choose to use if you want, particularly in crowded indoor situations. But we have a game plan to navigate through. But I believe even to date, there's not one person under age 20 in Minnesota that has died from COVID-19. Zero. Think about that. We're willing to shut down the schools when not one person under 20 has died from COVID. Is there some risk? Yes, there is some risk. This is a serious virus. This is a pandemic. We probably won't have a vaccine for a year. So what do we do as we navigate through? Do we shut down the businesses? It's not COVID-19 that has created this huge deficit in Minnesota and across our land. It's how government has reacted to it. Of course, when the government decides to shut down all businesses and churches and activities and there is no commerce, guess what? There is no money coming into the state. Don't blame that on COVID. It's how government responded to this that we've had to navigate. And in the beginning, no one knew. The threats of how many people were going to die was off the charts, and everybody was afraid, and I get that. Even our governor said at first 78,000 people would die in Minnesota, but if we shelter at home everybody, 40,000 people will die. Well, I took a snapshot of one of the groups that survey what they think the outcomes would be. In the end of March, they said August 4th, it was going to be something like 1,500 deaths. I'm curious to where it's going to be, and I don't have the exact number, but right around that number. Well, it's going to be a lot closer to that number than it is to the governor's 40,000 number, but all of our decisions have been made on 40,000 deaths. All of them. And so we sit here and so we say, okay, it has lifted. We do have more information. We know for sure that it's people in nursing homes and seniors and those that are vulnerable that are at risk. We know that. We've seen all of the data. It's nursing homes, and we still don't treat nursing homes the way we should. But people are dying in nursing homes from isolation. We've shut them out from the world. They can't even talk to the loved ones that they want. They'd rather talk to their loved ones and take a risk. But for kids, school is essential. We have to leave that open. We've got to figure it out. If there's a teacher that's at risk, we can assign them to distance learning, but kids have to be back in school. So members, we didn't know in the beginning. And I'll leave some room for error in that beginning, those decisions for the entire country, but we know now. And we're not in an emergency phase. We're in a phase that we have to manage through this. The governor doesn't get to have emergency powers for more than a year if we keep on this path. He'll have the emergency powers into the fall, into the winter. That's not how we do government in Minnesota. We want to work side by side with him. We want to roll up our sleeves, the governor and us, and work together. The emergency powers need to go away. He should not have this kind of authority to make all these decisions without the role of the legislative branch given our position.
Next on the list, I have Senator Matthews, followed by Senator Jasinski. Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too briefly want to respond to what one thing that Senator Franson pointed out about the lack of bills coming forward and addressing these issues. I know that's not fully accurate because I was the chief author of several of those bills on the business front of how we can try to get businesses to safely open even in the midst of the difficult situations with COVID-19 that we're in. One of those bills we had a committee hearing on. The governor's team, through his commissioner, came to the committee. I tried reaching out to them ahead of time to talk about the bill. I didn't get a response back. They came to committee, and the governor's position was, we oppose this bill. We had the second bill that we brought here and had a vigorous debate here on the Senate floor. And the governor's position was opposing that bill. We've been putting ideas forward, but so far, apparently his position has seemed to be that unless he's making the decisions under emergency powers, he's not been supportive of other ideas that have come along. And that's been very difficult and very disappointing. So here we are again, a month later. Members, there was no reason to have the emergency powers extended from last month. And I believe that there's less than no reason now to continue it for another month. But yet it seems like that maybe this governor is going to carry through till past Election Day. Maybe he's going to carry through for the remainder of his term. I don't know. It seems like he's in to keep emergency powers like this unilaterally for the long haul. And when you look at all the data, all the numbers that are coming in here in Minnesota, there's simply no emergency. And I'm disappointed by the characterization that the governor and others keep trying to bring up, that we claim that it's no big deal. We all understand that we still have COVID-19, that we still need to protect ourselves. But these characterizations that some are saying, let's get back to normal, that's simply not true. I can't recall one person in my district asking me, Senator, help us get back to normal. I do hear many people standing up and asking me, Senator, let's get back to freedom. And that's what I'm asking all of you members to join with us today in doing. Because the way that we're operating now, with one person making all the decisions for the state of Minnesota, is not right, and it's not freedom. I took a look at some of the news that we've had here in the past month. Let me just remind members of things that were said before. March 28th, 2020, Star Tribune article about the forecast for Minnesota predicting a COVID-19 surge, but fewer deaths in the summer. It says that both estimates are stark. It was comparing various models in this article. The do-nothing model predicted 74,000 deaths in Minnesota over the entire course of the pandemic. The model for the current state strategy still predicted 50,000 to 55,000 deaths. Today, the numbers are a total of 1,504 deaths. And we know, I believe, over 75% of those have been in long-term care facilities where we've been making horrible decisions and improperly caring in that area. We also know that there were counts of people that died with COVID as opposed to people dying from COVID that were included in these numbers. When you boil it all down, it's not very much at all. April 10th, 2020, from our local Fox affiliate, Minnesota officials project 22,000 COVID-19 deaths and a July 13th hospitalization peak. Members, today is July 13th. And in this article, it was reported that this scenario, which closely reflects Governor Walz's extended stay-at-home orders that he's implemented, suggests a July 13th hospitalization peak requiring 3,700 intensive care beds. Members, the numbers today, 114 people in intensive care. All the predictions that have been coming along the way are grossly inaccurate. And many of the people that I hear from in my district are not happy about hearing this sky is falling type shtick anymore. We want to get back to freedom. We know that there are risks. We know that there are challenges. But Americans have always opted for liberty, even in the face of risks. And we're a better and free country for it. Let's talk about our long-term care facilities here for a minute. We know the numbers, it's been mentioned many times. I had 2 officials from a long-term care facility in my district contact me, wanted to set up a video call. They reached out because they wanted to share about the concerns they had, that the rules and regulations coming from the administration are conflicting. They make no sense. They were just at the stage of trying to get the regulation set up to let family members come back in and see their residents again. And they said, Senator, these restrictions it's not possible for us to have the staff and the capability to accommodate what these rules are saying to allow our residents to see their families again. It's just simply not workable. And I mentioned to them a story, Senator Housley mentioned this last month in our opening press conference of that special session. She read a letter that she had received, a tragic letter about a person who wrote to her to say that their family member in a long-term care facility had said, I would rather die of COVID-19 than not be able to see my family right now. And at the end of my conversation with my two officials from the long-term care facility in my district, I was empathizing with them. I reiterated that story to them, said, hey, we even heard this news here a couple weeks past from someone that wrote one of our senators. That person would rather die from COVID-19 than not be able to see their family. The two of them looked at me and said, Senator, we hear that every day in our facility. Broke my heart. Residents every day are saying the wrong of me not being able to see my family is worse than this risk of this disease towards those who are the most vulnerable to catching it and dying from it. We're not doing right by them. So right now we have one person that's making edicts and restricting liberties and controlling people's lives. There's one person who decided you can't leave your home unless you meet a government-supplied list of reasons to do so. We had one person who said you can't open your business unless you meet one government-supplied list of reasons for how you can open your business. We can't have schools open unless one person gives allowance and permission to do so, which Republicans are leading on. We need to have schools open so that people have the choice they can make. We had one person who has decided that churches could not open for a very long time. Right now, those choices should be made by this body. If we feel that we have to shut things down and restrict people's liberties and take drastic actions in the face of COVID-19 right now, it should be a bill in this body that all of us vote up or down on and then go back home and be accountable to our residents and our constituents for the decisions we made. Not decisions made by one person who's not on the ballot this year and seems to be trying to keep these powers clear past Election Day or the remainder of the term. So members, you have two buttons on your desk. You have a green button that votes yes and a red button that votes no. I'm asking you to push the green button because right now the green button is a vote for freedom. Our residents are not asking us to get back to normal, they're asking us to get back to freedom. The red button will continue the support of tyranny that we've been seeing these past few months by one person making decisions. It's time to get back to freedom. Join me in voting yes on this resolution.
Next on the list is Senator Jasinski, followed by Senator Jensen. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to thank Senator Gazelka and Senator Matthews for some great words. Mine won't be as eloquent, but I will tell you what I hear in my district. And my district wants to know what is going on in St. Paul. They're frustrated. You go back to March, our governor said there are going to be 40,000 deaths in Minnesota, even if we stay home and self-distance. Today, as you heard, 1,504. He also said back in March we were going to need beds for 3,000 people in ICU in July. As Senator Matthews said, we have 114. Statistics I got in the last 10 days, we've had 38 COVID deaths. In the last 10 days, we've had 73 accidental deaths. We can't stop everything. People die, people are born, people die. We get up every day, we take extra safety precautions. I take my temperature every morning. I wash my hands about 50 times more than I used to. I always cover my cough. We have some common sense things that we can do to make ourselves safe. Our businesses, as Senator Gazelka said, in this state, what has been done to them has been done by our government. It has not been done by COVID-19. It's been done by our government. Decisions to close down businesses, to pick and choose which businesses will survive and which ones will not. And folks, there's a lot of them out there that are not surviving. They may be hanging on, but their profits are down by 40%. And that will have a lasting effect on Minnesota. I have Navy friends, college friends, and business associates across the nation that call me and say, what is going on in Minnesota? What are you guys doing up there? I had a gentleman from the state, there's a large business owner in Mankato, Minnesota. He did a family trip for 8,800 miles with his family, 5 different states. He said it is night and day difference between out there and Minnesota. People in those other states are living, they don't have all the restrictions, their businesses aren't failing. Minnesota is different. We are causing undue harm to our small businesses, to our manufacturers, to our students who aren't getting the education they should be because they're remote learning. I have 2 kids in college, University of Minnesota Duluth. The education they're getting is not near what it was when you're in classroom. Not near. But we're paying the same amount, and that's what they want us to do, is come back in the fall, pay full tuition, and then maybe decide we'll do it remotely. We're paying that education money to get our kids educated, and we're not doing that remotely. Our gap in education is going to go farther and farther apart. We need to get our kids into schools. We need to open our businesses. You look at Wisconsin, about I think 5.8 million people they have 828 deaths in Wisconsin, and they have less restrictions. There's less government control of who's being let open and who's not. Minnesota, 5.6 million people, 1,504 deaths. Why are we different? Businesses in Minnesota, I talked to a large business owner in my district in Faribault, and he said, John, if I didn't have 4th generation business and have over 150 employees, I would be out of Minnesota so fast it would make your head spin. Businesses aren't going to want to reinvest in Minnesota after what things going on the last 3 months. They're not going to reinvest. There are so many things going on with COVID-19, with the rioting. Minnesota is in the spotlight, and we are not performing well. Our businesses don't want to stay here. Our people, more and more people already, because our taxes want to leave, and now they're going to want to leave for other reasons. We need to continue on. And by one person having all this control is not healthy for our state. We were all elected here to put input to what we want to see done in our state, and we do not have that. We can throw in a ton of bills. As Senator Matthews said, we can do a lot of bills. But if the governor doesn't like them, they're not going to get approved. One person in control will not help Minnesota. We all need to help. We need to lift the emergency powers of our governor. Please vote green. Thank you.
Next on the list, I have Senator Jensen, followed by Senator Marty. Senator Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues. It's not misinformation when Senator Kent discusses a changing metric from doubling times to per capita cases. And it's not misinformation when Senator Franzen talks about Edina seeing an upsurge in their number of cases, even though their mayor comes out and says that the average age of COVID-19 in Edina has now dropped from around the age of 60 or a little less down to under 20 It's not information when Governor Walz says that we're going to have 74,000 deaths, and that number then drops to 29,000. And I remember making a copy of his prediction that in mid-July, which I think we're in, being July 13th, would be 1,000 deaths per day, and we're at a total of 1,500 throughout the entire pandemic. And I think we could even say that it's not misinformation when the Illinois Public Health Director comes out and tells us that just because it says COVID-19 on the death certificate as the cause of death doesn't mean that they died of COVID-19. In some way or another, folks, we are trying desperately to get our arms around what's going on. But I think we're losing perspective. To me, one of the most important things that I can say to Governor Walz today is thank you. Thank you for tirelessly getting up in the morning, trying to do your best. But I think we need to go back where we started in March. March 6th was our first case. When we met as a legislature, when we conferenced with Governor Walz, we never intended to squash the case count. We were told that there were two goalposts: depress the peak, delay the surge, so that we could get our arms around the challenge in front of us, so that indeed we would not overwhelm our hospital facilities and our ability to take care of those who became critically ill from COVID-19. We never intended to authorize dictatorial powers to be in place until a vaccine might emerge, if it ever does. In fact, we were cautioned by Dr. Fauci when he said it would be exceedingly unusual to have a vaccine come to fruition before 12 to 18 months, which puts us out into the middle of the summer in 2021. We never intended as a legislature to exclude Minnesotans from playing the role that they could play to help all of us get through this. And we never intended to quarantine the well, to take those who were flourishing in health and say, you are going to be stymied. Your businesses may go bankrupt. Your savings will be depleted. You may be desperate to try to figure out how you're going to care for your family. We never intended to do that. But here we are. Andy Slavitt was quoted the other day in the Strib saying something to the effect that this COVID-19 is going to be around for a while and we're going to have to learn to coexist with it. I think he's right. It's going to be around for a while. It's been 6 months in running. During that time, we have seen an emergence of dictatorial powers coming from the governor's office with his staff. Now, his staff doesn't have election certificates. We do. And as such, Democrats and Republicans in the House and in the Senate are hearing from their constituents a mile a minute. We're all being inundated with input. We are elected to lead, and Minnesotans expect us to be able to do so. Is it time to stop this unintended social experiment that's taking place with our children? What do we think can happen when you take a group of 3 to 10-year-olds and you surround them with adults that wear masks? You have the TV playing with fear-mongering from all the media people. You separate families, and then you tell kids, you're not going to school. You're not going to see your playmates. What do we think is going to happen? I mean, we're already getting some inklings. We're seeing a serious uptick in suicides. We have numerous diseases of desperation that come in our office every day. And is it time to ask Minnesotans to come alongside of all of us and say, we want you to use the personal responsibility that you're capable of putting into play because we know that you want to help? We're not going to get through this by having someone serve as an emperor of Minnesota. We need to draw together. We know certain things do real well. We know that if you don't touch your eyes, your nose, your mouth, you have eliminated the 3 main portals of entry for COVID-19. We know that COVID-19 isn't comparable to syphilis or to Ebola or to tuberculosis or to leprosy. It's comparable to influenza. We get weekly reports from the Minnesota Department of Health regarding influenza every year. And it's because if you look over the last 50 years, in one part of our world or another, we've had 50 epidemics. There are places in Africa that are on their 14th epidemic of Ebola since 1980. We cannot afford to absolutely strip our citizens of their right to liberty, to making their own best decisions. We know that this virus goes after the aged, that are frail, with multiple underlying conditions. Let's do everything we can to help those people. But as we see this virus pivot and start targeting the 20 to 50-year-olds, you could actually make a very good case. This is exactly what we need to have happen so that we can start moving toward that herd immunity. Because I kid you not, tell me what respiratory virus we have effectively come up with a vaccine that gives us some 75 to 85% effectiveness. It isn't out there. It's almost a standing joke every year with our influenza vaccine. Is it going to be 10, 20, 30, or 40% effective? This battle will be won by us collectively coming together. This battle will be won in our own immune systems, and there's so much we don't know about that. If we think for a moment that just because we don't have positive serology testing doesn't mean we're immune to it, we have thousands and thousands of people that are already immune to COVID-19, and we just can't detect it. They've either got T lymphocyte immunity, they've got macrophage immunity, they've got a humoral immunity coming from antibodies that we're not able to pick up on. Mayo Clinic came out with the IgA neutralizing antibodies just a few weeks ago. Folks, it's time. Governor Walz, relinquish the peacetime powers. Let's work together. And for heaven's sakes, get the kids back to school in September.
Next on the list, we have Senator Marty, followed by Senator Frentz. Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, if it hasn't been asked for, I'd like to request a roll call.
A roll call has been requested, Senator Marty. Senator Marty.
When Senator Gazelka introduced the resolution, I heard him say that he doesn't want, and lots of the Republican statements have said the same thing, that they don't want the governor to unilaterally make such major policy decisions. I think I've heard the words in the last 5 minutes. I've heard dictator, I've heard tyrant, I think I've heard emperor. I know Tim Walz, and I don't think he's any of those things. I don't think he wants to be any of those things. I think he doesn't like to be forced into a position where he has to have executive authority like this. But somebody does have to make some major decisions. And I think this resolution is exactly backwards from where we ought to be. The governor is in the midst of thinking over and meeting with people and wrestling with the topics that we all can have input in on things like masks and school openings. But whether he should make them or the legislature should make them, somebody has to make the decisions. And he's making these tough decisions as we go. And as he extends the session, the emergency authority, he calls us back into special session. That's a check and balance. So is Senator Gazelka's resolution. We can cut it off if we think it's unreasonable. We can challenge things. We can overrule decisions. We can do that all legislatively. But he is not trying to do things in an unreasonable way. I think he's methodically and logically and carefully wrestling with what a lot of us would consider no-win choices, like whether you open the schools up, or you have remote learning, or you have a hybrid model, which are the three models they're considering. None of them are really good. Yes, one or two of the speakers said, yeah, the kids under 20 who are dying from this are very few and far between. So what's the problem? What is it, 82%, I think I heard, of the school bus drivers in the state over 55 and therefore at risk? A lot of them a lot older than that. We don't have school bus drivers, kids don't get to school, it doesn't work anyway. They're not easy decisions. And when I said this is backwards, saying the governor shouldn't make that decision on July 27th so the schools have some time to try and implement that decision, and so it can be tweaked and everything else. I'm listening closely, and I have yet to hear a single mention of a legislative or Senate hearing on opening schools. And Senator Nelson, unless you're being prohibited from doing it by leadership, it seems we could have one. And I agree, Senator Benson said this would be wonderful. The public, parents and teachers, they'd benefit from hearing all the arguments and hearing the discussion, something legislative hearings are very good at. So Senator Nelson could easily have hearings to consider the regular school back in-person school, or the remote learning, or the alternative, or if she's got some other ideas, or anybody in the committee has any ideas, they could consider them. That's a great way to do it. But if we haven't talked about having hearings this week, and I hear we're going to adjourn in a week, then we come to the end of July very quickly, on July 27th, and if this would take effect, then the governor can't make any decision. And I keep hearing, I heard the St. Francis superintendent the other day on the radio, I've heard others, they're waiting eagerly to hear what the decision's going to be and how they're going to work around that and how they're going to make it happen. What they're not looking for is to somebody say, well, we don't want the governor to decide, we'll think about it. And yes, several of you said we can come back in September if things get worse and we can make some decisions. So where does that leave the superintendents? Where does it leave the teachers? Somebody has got to decide. And we're saying, oh, let's take away the governor's authority to do that because we know better, and we might someday make those decisions. That's what I have a problem with. If we don't want the governor to decide, where are our hearings? Senator Franzen said she voted for this resolution to cut it off last month. She's been waiting, hasn't seen anything change in the last month. When are we going to decide? Senator Matthews said that he had some bills. I think we did vote on one of them on the floor on opening businesses. And it didn't make it through the House, I understand, and that's part of our legislative process, which means that even if you think that was the way to do it and that the governor's way off base in when he's opening up things and how, but we've heard nothing on any of the other executive orders. We've never heard nothing on masks. We've heard nothing on school opening. We seem to want to blame him for being a tyrant and a dictator. But what are we going to do? Well, we're going to sit here and twiddle our thumbs, and we can't have any hearings because that might be controversial. And I think if you do want to pass something, because I've heard 2 or 3 of the speakers say we got to have the schools fully opened up this fall, and in-class learning for everyone. If you think that's a good idea, you're the majority. You can schedule the hearings. I've had a lot of bills I've introduced that don't get hearings. But Senator Gazelka, if he has a bill, I'm sure he could get it heard. I think, Senator Nelson, you would likely hear his bill if he sent one to your committee. And I'd urge you to do that before you have a bill or resolution to cut off the governor's executive order. That's what you should be doing first. Say, we can do this. We have some ideas. We think the governor's wrong here. We think his decision July 27th isn't going to be the right one. We think we got a better idea. We'll put it out there, and I think the public would benefit. We'd all benefit. And I think there are a lot of people in this body who, if they heard all these hearings, might change their mind along the way. Maybe they think they should be more open or more remote or more in between. But those hearings would be valuable. But that's what we ought to be doing here. That's why he calls the special session, so that we have the check and balance. And the check and balance just doesn't mean saying, no, nobody should be making that decision. We can do this resolution. I'd be open to this resolution if I thought we were going to address those urgent issues. I think it's awkward for a 201-member bicameral legislature to come up with a lot of quick decisions in a quickly changing situation, but we have to do things differently. And so if you have things, Senator Nelson, I'm not on your committee, but I'd care to bet that a A lot of members of the committee would care to show up and participate in those hearings. Do those first, then come back and say, now we don't need the governor to make those decisions. And on the masks, the study out of Washington State suggested that the likely death toll, I think it's about 130 or 140,000 Americans so far. We're 5% of the world's population. I think we got about a quarter of the deaths. We're not doing that good. They said if 95% of Americans would wear masks between now and November, we would cut 45,000 deaths from the death toll. And I know the early numbers were higher than they should have been. I'd rather people be overly cautious at the beginning until we know more. But now it does look like that 210,000 deaths by November is likely unless we change. And so maybe we need a mask mandate. And maybe the legislature doesn't want that, and maybe they don't want the governor to do it. If so, prohibit that, or allow it, or require it. But don't take away all his power and say somebody's going to take care of it and plan to go home in a week and leave these all undecided. I urge you, strongly urge you to put your own house in order before you go and say we're going to take away the governor's authority to make decisions that somebody needs to make.
Before we go to Senator Frentz, we'll allow Senator Nelson to respond. Senator Nelson.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the discussion about our schools. I had not planned on speaking to that today, but there have been so many comments on the floor that need to have some context put to them. First of all, the myth buster regarding coronavirus. Of course, it's dangerous, and it's novel, and we don't know what's coming next. And I have a whole list of mythbusters that I want to say that I heard on the floor today. But the one that I am very glad to speak to right now, Mr. President and members, is the importance of our schools. And yes, that is our constitutional responsibility. Our schools are essential. The American Academy of Pediatrics has recently come out and talked about how important it is that our children are in schools in those physical settings, weighing that with the unintended consequences of mental health concerns unaddressed, health concerns unaddressed, nutrition concerns unaddressed, special education services not addressed. So it's critical. But we also have to know that in countries where they have reopened schools, students seem to play a much smaller response in driving the spread of disease than we had thought. That's in the New York Times from Dr. Sean O'Leary. And then we talked about the importance of our economic stability. And according to the Brookings Institute, about 1/3 of our workforce are parents with minor children. If we want to see an economic recovery, we have to see our schools and our daycare, our child care settings return if we want a robust economic recovery. And as I said, it's a constitutional requirement. And so then I hear people talking about how important it is. Why haven't we had hearings? Well, members, there is one thing that is standing in the way of schools opening and doing what they need to do. Members, that is the governor's executive order. Schools can resume classes in the manner that they see fit, except for the governor's executive orders. Schools can decide to exercise caution and what type of learning is necessary. And I think that's part of the difference here that I hear on the Senate floor today. Some members seem to think that one person has somehow the ability to understand what 300 school districts face, the conditions on the ground regarding the coronavirus, the resources to combat those those challenges with the coronavirus. The problem is, members, it isn't one size fits all. We are one Minnesota, but we are a very diverse Minnesota, from corner to corner, from very small districts that had 7 graduating seniors who could not have a commencement exercise on their football field because the governor made a decision that somehow applied to all of the students in our state. And so, members, there is one thing standing in the way of our schools being able to open safely in the manner that best suits their students, their parents, the employers, and it's not hearings in the Minnesota legislature. It is the governor's executive orders that are preventing our schools from doing the planning that they need. To think that the governor is not going to make this decision until July 27th is a recipe for disaster. To think that our schools had 8 days in March to take a curriculum and turn it into distance learning. I salute our teachers. They did a terrific job. But the governor put them in a precarious situation. So members, yes, the coronavirus is serious. Yes, our students need to get back to school in the manner that is safe for those children in that particular school district. And yes, the school districts have the power to determine that. It is the governor's executive orders that are preventing our schools from making that important decision. They already have the authority to offer blended learning, hybrid learning, in-person learning in our schools as we are used to. They have that authority already. Let us let them use it. I encourage you to let our schools and our students and our parents make that decision. This is one essential reason why we need to terminate the governor's executive powers. I could go on, and I had more things to say, but I wanted to specifically focus on that school area. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Nelson. Senator Frentz, and followed by Senator Frentz is Senator Westrom, if you want to make your way to the microphone. Thank you. Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, members, for this spirited discussion. One simple question has remained unanswered despite the fact that we're in our second hour. Why would Minnesota terminate the emergency powers of its executive when 49 of 50 states have not? Why would Minnesota tell its governor emergency powers are not appropriate when the President of the United States is exercising emergency powers? What makes Minnesota so different that we must eliminate the emergency powers? Vote no on the resolution, retain the emergency powers, and be prepared. Now, why should we be prepared? Well, we have governors of both Democrats and Republicans across the state. If you recall our definition of emergency powers, it was an act that requires immediate action. We need to be nimble. We need the executive to be ready to act. No disrespect to our legislature, but it's not the speediest device ever created. We've made a lot of jokes here about the governor's executive powers, most of them behind the scenes in the last few months. But let's talk about some serious facts. The governor of Texas reversed himself in 72 hours on bar closings and mask wearing. Think about that, members. 72 hours, and a Republican governor said, I have to take action right now, and it was 180 degrees of what he said he would do just 3 days earlier. If the governor of Minnesota doesn't have that power, who knows how long it'll take the Minnesota legislature to act. Is that a serious matter? You bet it is. Do you know how many obituaries were in the Houston Chronicle on Sunday? 43 pages. The reason we want the governor to have these executive powers is so that we avoid the worst case scenario. And I agree with those members who said we need to err on the side of caution. We have got great results in Minnesota in many ways and by many measures. Thank you to members of both parties for pointing that out. That's good news. That's a sign that we've done some things correctly, and we want to keep on doing them correctly. Finally, the question is, what is it that the legislature lacks that the governor's emergency powers provide us? Well, I would just call attention to some of the most important COVID legislation, CARES Act funding. Could the legislature get it done? No, we couldn't. Look at the housing work that we've done. Could the legislature get it done? No. Both those items could have been done by the legislature, and they weren't. And for that, I think a lot of Minnesotans are saying, yeah, I don't really know if I like the speed and the work product coming out of that legislature right now. Now we'll grant members of both parties this unique characteristic. We're a divided legislature. Other states don't necessarily have one chamber in one party's hands and one in the other. And that's just the hand we're dealt, and we'll do fine with it. But a better decision here today is to allow the governor to maintain the emergency powers until we can reach an agreement about how to move forward. And if we never have bad news on our hospitalizations and our intensive care and our fatalities, that'd be a good thing for Minnesota. And all of us, including the governor, would be able to pat ourselves on the back and say we did the best we could with the situation we had. Finally, I do hear some things said about our governor, Tim Walz, and I'd just like to point out to members who talk about us as an elected body, that governor was elected too. The difference between the governor's election and each one of our elections is that each one of us was elected by a single Senate district. He was elected by the people of the entire state of Minnesota, and that's an election that counts for us too. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Frentz. Senator Westrom and Senator Pratt's to follow Senator Westrom, so if you would make your way down to the floor, please. Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, members, I urge your support of this revocation of the emergency powers because educating our students, teaching our students is essential, period. And if for no other reason to revoke the governor's emergency powers, it should be because teaching our students is essential. The same as it's been essential to go to Walmart in flooded aisles, Target, big box stores. But that's essential. And so is educating our students. Senator Frentz, Senator Franson talked about it's on us. We have an executive in the governor's office that seems to think he has to make all the decisions in the state. Senator Frentz, Senator Franson, Senator Marty, you forget we have local executives in our schools. We have elected school boards. That's called local control that you somehow have amnesia of and think the state and one person can make all the decisions, whether it's in Campbell-Tinta on the western edge of my district, Hallock up in Senator Johnson's district, or Minneapolis or St. Paul. And I will tell you, they are vastly different districts. And one size does not fit all. But we've got this one-size-fits-all governor that once he got his emergency powers, he's gotten bad advice. Bad advice that that statute was ever passed and intended for one person to turn our state into an emperor, you've heard, a dictator, tyrannical. You pick the name, the adjective, but the conduct is what describes the adjective. And to the public watching, and to the constituents I am hearing from about reopening the schools, reopening businesses, we've heard a lot of that in the past. They think this is crazy. We are going on month 5/12 of our year. Nearly half of our year is going to be under one person running government in Minnesota because there's a state of emergency. The state of emergency, we have dealt with many of the concerns of why we even went into the state of emergency, which we've heard talked about here. It was to flatten the curve. It was to get more prepared for our hospitals and healthcare workers so we could handle the ongoing pandemic, COVID-19, that's going to make its way through our state and our country. We have had colds and flus forever. And we're in 2020. However old the earth is, anywhere between 4,000 and 5,000 years and millions of years, depending upon which side of creation and evolution you stand on, but it's a long time. And there has yet to be a cure for the common cold. There's no vaccine for it yet. Or the flu. Many strains of flu make its way through. My children are in school every year. There is periods that a third and half of their class is out for days because of colds and flus. That has been standard. You keep your children home when they're feeling sick. That will be heightened by many people now because of the concern of the pandemic and COVID-19. That's the state of the emergency we started in March, to prepare, to get ready, to be able to react, but not to put our state into a situation of a dictatorial, a tyrannical, an emperor, whatever the adjective is you want, but a governor who wants to pervert the statute that was passed to have very limited powers of quarantine of those areas and communities where there might be a virus or an outbreak. Not to quarantine the entire state, all of those that are well, along with the sick. Everybody's been learning along the way. Many question the decision of putting COVID-19 patients into our nursing homes, as our governor's office did with his advisors, probably making the spread worse if you read several articles about it. Was that a good decision? We've got that same person in charge, unwilling to give up his emergency powers that weren't intended to go on for months and months and years. And we are here because we are on the 5th month of the governor refusing to work with the legislature to step back and say, where do we still have any unfinished emergencies or critical areas? The legislature responded very quickly with lots of dollars to fund our health care facilities, fund PPE. The governor even bought a refrigerated building to put those that might have become deceased from this disease. We haven't even come close to needing that. Was that a wise decision by the governor and the money we gave him back in April? Most in my district would say no. That's why the legislature should be involved in these decisions. Educating our students, teaching our children should be essential, just like shopping at Walmart, shopping at the grocery stores, and the retail business and commerce that people need to live their lives. Just like buying gas at the gas station. Find ways to do it. But to Senator Marty, Senator Frentz, you forget. We have local control in this state. We have local administrators, superintendents, directed by their local elected school board, many of them parents of students or grandparents of students, community leaders. Some of them are even doctors. Some of them are plumbers. Some of them are nurses. But most of them are closely in tune with their community and finding ways to safely reopen schools. If they want to close completely, let them decide. If they find a scenario in their school, like most schools find in December and January in Minnesota, where a third or half of the students are out anyways because of common colds, common flus, viruses that we have not been able to fix or cure since the beginning of time. And so, members, we have to remember that in context. But we have the power here today to represent our constituents, and that's why I am here at the Capitol in the legislative branch to do my part. The governor doesn't have to go alone. Governor, you're getting bad advice from those that keep telling you this, or else it's your own decision. I don't know that for sure yet. But you're getting bad advice. I'll presume it's your advisors that continue giving you the attaboys. Got to stay on this course. Keep everybody's decision under your decision. No, we've got local control in this state. April 13th, the governor said, we need to reach 5,000 tests a day to reopen Minnesota. We're here on July 13th, well past the 5,000 tests a day that the governor set as the benchmark on April 13th. We're 3 and 4 times that some days in testing. Most every day seems to be well beyond 5,000 tests, the governor's own benchmark. And yet, we haven't reopened Minnesota yet. And we're talking about closing schools down, or those that are here arguing against this emergency revocation are setting it up to not have our schools reopened. The legislature, Democrats and Republicans, we have a unique opportunity here. We do not need the governor's signing of this bill. We just need cooperation from the House and enough of us in the Senate to say yes. Yes to this bill today to revoke the emergency powers. And if the House of Representatives will get the courage to stand up for the citizens and the parents and the children of the state and deem them essential as well to educate our children, the legislature can stop this. We passed this in the Senate a month ago to stop the emergency powers. Let's pass it again. Let's get the House engaged, and it's only the House and Senate that need to act on this bill. The governor has no authority to sign or veto this bill, this resolution. So the power's in our hands, members, and that's why this is such a critical vote, a critical responsibility for us elected senators representing many different areas across the state. But folks, we have local control. Let's trust the local school boards and their administrators and superintendents. And they can evaluate, but they can have some certainty on reopening schools in September and develop safe ways like we have done with Walmart, big box stores, small stores, grocery stores, and many other essential things in our lives, and let people get back to their livelihoods as much as possible, as normal as we can let them with safety precautions in the way, but let's get out of the way of leaving them in a quandary and leave it up to local decision makers, because that's the structure we have in government. We don't need big, heavy-handed state government or federal government. And the governor doesn't have to have all this weight on his shoulders. As I've said, there's many decisions he's probably made wrong, as I've pointed out. And the hindsight is always the easier way to point it out. And I admit that. I understand that. And that's why we leave it to the local officials that we've put in place that give us local control and government of the people that can know best in their communities. Members, last week I had the enjoyment of going to a youth baseball game for our son. What an enjoyable night. The joy that was in all those youth being able to play baseball again, a summer sport here in Minnesota that a month ago wasn't possible. Finally, that was lifted. If we would have lifted the emergency powers a month ago, it would have been a little sooner. But it's those types of decisions that can be made locally. They played safe. The fans largely social distanced. And the kids had a blast. But I talked to a lot of parents as well, and spectators, and they had a blast as well, because people are ready to get out and find safe things to enjoy and return their lives to normal. Members, vote yes on this. Stop the emergency powers of the governor. The legislature can control this, the Senate and the House. Democrats in the House just have to bring this up, support it with the Republicans, and we can end these emergency powers today. And we can make sure educating our students, teaching our children, is as essential as I believe it is. And let's bring that certainty to our local school districts and let them decide.
Thank you, Senator Westrom. Senator Pratt. I'll give Senator Pratt a moment to get down here. Next on the list is Senator Kiffmeyer. If Senator Kiffmeyer wants to come and get ready. Senator Pratt.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President and members. I've been listening to the debate today and thinking about the proclamation that the governor put out. And in his proclamation, the governor said he was calling us back to complete unfinished business. There's only one reason we're here. We're here because the governor wants to extend his emergency powers, period. We voted. Both caucuses want a bonding bill, and I know it's being worked on. We voted out of this body common sense police reform, and many of the provisions that were in the House lists. We are here simply and solely because the governor wants to extend his emergency powers. Every other reason in that proclamation is what our farmers would politely call fertilizer. The governor's used his emergency powers to micromanage every aspect of our life. His rules have created serious inequities in our communities. Local shops were closed while big box stores were allowed to stay open and packed. Local restaurants in Scott County provided the governor some protocols for being able to reopen safely, and they never received a response. And he didn't even choose to act on any restaurant protocols until a month later. He and his Department of Labor have now used their powers to implement new restrictions and responsibilities for industries that have been open the entire course of this pandemic. Even though the Department of Labor cannot point to one single case, and I've asked them, they cannot point to one single case where a work site, like a construction site, has been the source of an outbreak. The people of, so Governor, you said that you needed emergency powers so our hospitals could be prepared for a surge. You've told us that's done. You said we needed the capacity to perform 20,000 COVID tests a day. You've told us it's done. Now you tell us that you need to have a vaccine. We can't deal with this moving target. Now, I've heard many of my colleagues here today say this pandemic shouldn't be partisan, and I couldn't agree more. If you want to know why this issue is partisan, you only need to look to the governor's office. You only need to look at the moving targets that I just highlighted. You only need to look at the inequities in the orders that he's presented. In the first special session, he convinced the House to block legislative funding to our cities and counties to cover COVID expenses so that he could do it through emergency order. And you only need to look at the rhetoric, such as in this proclamation, to know why this has become a political issue. 30 days ago, I asked, if not now, when? I never got a response. I'm asking again. If we can't end the governor's emergency powers today, then when? I encourage senators to vote in favor of this resolution because it's now time to end the governor's emergency powers. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Kiffmeyer. Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I've heard and listened to all of the speeches today. Every single one of them was made with heart. They spoke their minds, they spoke their heart, as we do here on the Senate floor, and we're grateful for that. But I've heard a few comments made that I think just need to be broadened a little bit further. One of them is the subject of tests. I've done a little research on tests, and what do they mean? Well, probably one of the most concerning issues is we treat each test as if it were a different person. That is not the case. Not the case at all. Each test that is done is counted as a test. But there are many people that have more than one test. So the number of positives or the number of tests do not equal the number of people uniquely. And that's important to remember because if you think of it as each test means a different person, you're getting a totally different picture of the reality of the situation we are in. Matter of fact, on the statistics and the numbers of good news, very sad for 2 people who died today, but considering the numbers that were projected in the hundreds and thousands by today, the ICU beds that were proclaimed to be dangerously close to maxing out, not true. As a matter of fact, today, they're at the lowest that they've been in about 6 weeks. When we come here, we do our job when we debate. We debate the issues, we debate the problems, we debate solutions. It's what we do. We are the legislature. We are the voice of the people from our districts, from all across the state of Minnesota. It's a wonderful thing to hear. However, what I have seen is that in the governor's office, all that decision-making process, any of that debating, is there going on? We don't know. We don't see it. We hear supposedly it is, but it's quite secret. Nobody gets to have them televised, on the record, open for questions, responses by different political parties, different groups, different issues. There's none of that in the governor's office that I know of, because we can't see into that. It's all done behind. And that's concerning. And one of the things I appreciate about the legislature is the openness of our debate. It's also been mentioned that this pandemic is historic and unprecedented. Well, folks, I go back and I take a look at SARS, Ebola, H1N1, the swine flu, and I assure you, they were big. They were pandemics, and they were big. And many more people died from them than we have today. So historic and unprecedented? I don't think so. I do think what is historic and unprecedented is the governor's emergency powers response to this. That is what's historic and unprecedented. And the people in my district, they talk to me and say they feel like they're being treated like children in a paternalistic society, where they're like children who have to be micromanaged for every moment of their life. We're going to allow you to do this, but you must do that. Go here, go there, do this, do that. It's demeaning to them. They feel like they're not treated as responsible adults with the ability to make choices in the United States of America, that they don't have that freedom. They find that particularly offensive. And every time they hear one Minnesota, what they really hear is one Minneapolis for all of Minnesota. They find that particularly problematic. They recognize the large city of Minneapolis, the large city of Minneapolis. We recognize their situations, but we aren't all one big city. We are Minnesota with 87 counties of various sizes, and that's really important. In regards to some of the vaccines, they may or may not come. And by the way, we get the flu vaccine, we're told about it every single year, 30 to 40% effective. Well, I wouldn't hold your breath waiting for that kind of return. However, I will say that across the country, with the innovation and creativity of people from Israel to Canada to the United Kingdom to France, there are phenomenal things in Minnesota, in our own state, that are going on right now. New cures, new responses, new kinds of drugs, new kinds of treatments. One just announced today from Israel. So there's so much good that's going on to give us hope, and all of these folks that are doing this. And you hear, too, about masks. Masks are very disappointing because the concept of them seems to be more of a put it on so you feel well, but in reality, the virus has no respect for that whatsoever. It flies through quite easily and quite commonly. As one of my constituents said, that's like putting up a chain link fence to keep out the mosquitoes. One of the things you realize with masks is that there are those who are vulnerable. We care about them. We care deeply about them. And we want them to stay sheltered. We'll get their food for them. We'll take care of things for them. There's telehealth. There's ways to take care of them. But the rest of us need to go about the business so that there's an economy to support the vulnerable. We don't realize when we reduce revenues to Minnesota state government through lack of economic activity, and there's going to be a very serious budget shortfall, as already been talked about, that puts at risk our elderly in nursing homes. So we need to have our economy working. We need to have people who are in that category of normal risk, not in the highly vulnerable, to be able to go to work, for our children to go to school, for our teachers to be able to use the gifts they have been given to teach, and that can safely be done, without question, that can safely be done. And it is time to do it. When I think of emergency powers, I think of an emergency. This is way beyond emergency. It's like the fire department staying on site until you rebuild the house. We don't do that. It's an emergency. You take care of that, and then the next phase of the program goes on. This micromanaging of the people is not needed, not necessary, and is harmful. And so absolutely, I will support this resolution, number 1, to end the emergency powers of Governor Walz, not ending the care, not ending the practical things we're going to do, like washing your hands, staying home when you're sick, all those things. Absolutely, we're going to continue to do that. But the micromanaging of your day-to-day life, that is time to stop and respect the people of Minnesota, trust the people of Minnesota, and let them enjoy the freedom that their hard-earned labor has earned and that our Constitution gives them, and let them return to freedom. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Sosinski.
I've been agonizing over this a great deal. I think the most they need to be back in school. Our kids need to be back in school. All the non-curriculum things that we send our kids to school for, that's what they're missing out on. They're missing out on that pat on the back by the teacher. They're missing out on that person they're interested in on the other side of the classroom. They're missing it out on passing time. They're missing out on all the things that aren't in the curriculum that we have an obligation to teach them. And so I want those kids back in school because I wasn't a fan of distant learning when I first heard of it, and I'm not a fan of it now. I don't think it's the right thing to do. Although right outside these walls, right outside that door, when you walk out next time, you'll see a quote by Horace Mann. And the quote says, "Education is our only political safety." Stew on those words, colleagues. Education is our only political safety. There's two things in that sentence that are causing us to agonize. Because education is our only duty as a legislature. It's our only duty found in the state constitution. It's been mentioned a few times today. And yet, we have a moral obligation to keep our kids safe from harm. And ultimately, that's what we're debating here today, is how do we keep those kids safe? Governor Walz is the only governor that actually spent a career in the classroom. He knows what he's talking about when he is talking as a teacher, educator, governor. And I have faith in his decision. Because one of the things we haven't talked much about today isn't about the kids, but it's about the teachers. We have a teacher shortage here in Minnesota right now. And I think if we go back to school in the fall, there might be an even greater teacher shortage, because a lot of our teachers are in their 50s and 60s. And they shouldn't be around sneezing, coughing, hacking kids all day. 150 of them coming through their door every 55 or 60 minutes. That's a lot of contact. And I feel sorry for that one kindergarten kid that walks into that classroom that first day and sees their teacher, this person that's going to be this role model for them in full combat gear and biohazard outfit and a robotic atmosphere of the classroom. Because that's not the loving, engaging classroom environment we all want our kids to have. So I hope that we vote no today and give the governor, again, the only teacher, educator, governor in our state history, the tools he needs to do the right thing for our teachers and our bus drivers and our counselors and our cooks and all the adults that are going to be in those buildings this fall, ultimately educating our children. Vote no. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Bingham.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask Senator Nelson to yield, but I think if you say her name, she usually comes out and will respond anyway, so I'll just save you the middle dialogue there, Mr. President. But I'd be interested to know if there is support for President Trump's executive order. I would be interested to hear if there is support for the threat to withhold or redirect federal education money. I would be interested in that, because that somehow miraculously isn't being discussed today when we're talking about education. The other thing I kind of want to point out is I've heard this discussion about the governor saying it's a one-size-fits-all thing. I've never heard him say that. In fact, I think it's kind of the complete opposite, Mr. President. See, a lot of this enforcement has fallen on the local governments. And, you know, we should have sent the CARES money for the cities, counties, and towns during the regular session, but we didn't. We should have sent that CARES money during the first special session to the cities, counties, and towns, but we didn't. But you know who did send that CARES money out? Oh, yeah, that was the governor, because we didn't do it. And the other thing that I'm kind of confused about is I've heard it a number of times now today that the only reason we're here is to extend the emergency powers. Well, man, I think the media is going to be disappointed. That I think they thought we were also coming here to do a bonding bill and maybe a tax bill and some other bills, so they're going to be disappointed. And somebody better alert my good friend, the Speaker of the House and the other body, because I think she thinks that there's going to possibly be a bonding bill and a tax bill. And in fact, I thought there was press conferences today saying there was going to be, Mr. President. But you know who's going to be the most disappointed? That this is the only reason we're here? Minnesotans. Because not passing a bonding bill, again, which we should have done in the regular session, but I understand that has to come from the House, the other body, sorry. And that didn't. But Minnesotans are going to be disappointed because that's jobs that are now not going to happen. So again, I thought we were coming back not only to have this discussion again, but also to do a bonding bill, which should have been done in the regular session, and possibly a tax bill and some criminal justice reform. I think people are going to be disappointed about that, but I guess that'll be a discussion for next year, according to what I'm hearing from the majority today. So, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Bingham. Senator Herr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say that I'm not ready to vote on this resolution. I will vote no on this resolution. My constituents, my community are not ready to vote for this resolution to remove the governor power during this peacetime emergency, because a number of executive orders will be removed quickly if we remove that power, including price gouging, eviction, and a number of issues. And as a minority person and also member of the minority caucus, it's difficult to get the voice out there. So we rely on the ear of the governor for a certain time to hear us, to make a difference for us. And we know the second wave is coming. And that could be real. Even our commander-in-chief, President Trump, finally put a mask on. And yes, we may not have reached 40,000 as predicted. But do you want to get there? No, we don't want to get there. And I thank the governor's leadership and his decision to flat the curve. And we still need that for the long haul. I have to admit that I was skeptical at first about the COVID-19 coronavirus. I was skeptical whether it's human-made or is it natural. But I follow instruction, WHO advice that I should put a mask on to prevent myself and also prevent others from catching something that I might have. I can't be skeptical anymore because people around me are suffering. People around me are dying off. I just buried my uncle last week, which I can't attend his funeral. I have to volunteer using draconian rule on myself so that we can be safe among families. Folks that I know very close to me are in hospital, and some will not make it. And one important of all, I have to bring up our St. Paul School Board, Marnie Xiong. If that doesn't set example to all of us, then what will it be for Minnesota and for city of St. Paul? Her family caught it, and she's young, 31. We just had a funeral on her life and legacy a week ago. So I was skeptical at first, very beginning in January, but now I'm not. And I'm convinced, and I'm relying on the executive order in times of need, and this is the time. So thank you for hearing me. Thank you, and I would ask you to join me in voting red. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. We have no further names on my list. Senator, you'd like to? Senator Kent. It's on third. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak before the minority lead? If not, Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. This has been I think, sort of a challenging discussion today. I want to reflect for a minute on some of the things that have been said and talk about where we are. I think it was Senator Abler who referred to Groundhog Day, and I actually kind of agree. We're having the same conversation. And when I think back a month ago when we were having this conversation, I made an analogy that it's like we're in a big jet plane flying at 30,000 feet. We've got the guy behind the controls, the pilot, and people are saying, hey, he doesn't need to be flying this plane anymore. But we haven't quite exactly figured out who's going to take over and how we're going to keep this plane up in the air. And here we are a month later, we're in the same place. We're complaining about it. We're pointing about how wrong this is. But we don't have any new plans to make this change. So I'm going to go back over again what would happen if this were to happen, and if the legislature would decide to revoke those emergency powers, what that would do to Minnesota, because we've not taken some steps to ensure that our response to this pandemic continues in a way that takes care of Minnesota people, their health, the businesses, and everybody's livelihoods. So, for example, if the peacetime emergency powers lapse, we would jeopardize over $50 million a month in federal funding. And we would immediately roll back important modifications and flexibilities that allow critical services such as nursing homes, mental health services, disability services, and child care centers to operate in the new world of COVID. We've talked a lot about education today. The pandemic has taken a deep toll on school budgets, providing flexibilities for fund transfers that allow districts and schools to remain as whole as possible. And I will interject in this moment as we talk about education. Yes, we all know and believe that our students should be in school. But we have to do it in a way that's safe. And I was a public school parent until just a year ago. And I know that it is on the families and the parents to provide Kleenex and school supplies. And the teachers, they pay for that stuff. We're going to have to do an awful lot of deep cleaning and regular sanitation in these schools, because anybody who's been around an elementary classroom knows that those runny noses are not well controlled. And that's a serious issue because it's not just about, I appreciate Senator Gazelka's point that no one under the age of 20, thank God, has died yet here in Minnesota, but they sure have around the country. And so probably, sadly, tragically, only a matter of time. But children are still able to have the disease and to spread the disease. And that's part of the concern. We need to handle this safely, and that is going to be a significant expense for our schools. Is the federal government going to help with that? I'm not confident that's coming anytime soon, since they're threatening to cut funding. And we know that we're limited in how we can respond because of our need to maintain a balanced budget. So let me continue with the things that will be affected if these peacetime emergency powers were to lapse. Food security for Minnesota's children, which is essential. Schools have been able to provide meals for the most vulnerable at this necessary time. We have ensured care for children of critical workers, from healthcare providers to first responders to grocery workers, so that that's not a barrier for those workers to continue their important roles on the front lines. We have provided leave for state employees who contract COVID-19 or are caring for family members who contract COVID-19. The evictions and garnishment moratoria would end with the peacetime emergency. A current executive order allows the Department of Veteran Affairs to prevent visitors to nursing homes per CDC guidance, and if that peacetime emergency goes away, they would not be able to so prevent. This way, because under current law, there is no ability to basically close the doors if there were to be an emergency and an outbreak and a risk to those veterans. Now they have that option. We have changed, reduced, and postponed various licensing requirements for health-related and first responder boards to help those professionals focus on their jobs. Emergency procurement power allows us to quickly procure PPE, other equipment, facilities, et cetera, without following cumbersome state procurement rules. Without the peacetime emergency, we cannot do procurement and contracting quickly. This is a critical component to our response efforts. Without this ability, we're back to the normal bid process. And I'll point to another example here. Recently, the caucus leaders were invited to join Governor Walz and members of the administrative team to tour this facility that has been identified and set aside for long-term care if we need it, if we need that additional capacity. And it's an amazing story because this is a Presbyterian Homes facility that was slated. They literally had the bulldozer in the parking lot. It was slated to be torn down because they built a new one, but they still had this building in place. And they were watching the news and they said, hey, wait a minute. This facility may actually be really helpful. So they contacted the Department of Health, and we have incredibly cost-effectively been able to make basic modifications to that existing structure so that it is ready to go in a 72-hour period if it's needed. And that has been done because these bidding and procurement processes were streamlined, and they were able to manage the waivers because we know it's so healthcare can be so convoluted. This is the state, this is the county. And the other thing that's interesting is that they've identified similar types of facilities around the state so that if we have outbreaks in different parts of Minnesota where they need additional care capacity, we are in a position, we have the model, and much more cost effectively. I think they said that a similar type facility in Wisconsin cost $7 million to provide, and we were able to do this, I believe, for under $2 million. This is what we've been able to do remarkably efficiently because of the governor's powers to coordinate all these efforts among the agencies. And also, finally, the declaration allows for the more effective operation of the Strategic Emergency Operations Center, and it makes a stronger case to FEMA for reimbursement and makes for a cleaner process in how we work with them and avoids confusion. I know this is not anybody's ideal way of doing things. I don't think there's anything about a pandemic that people think is ideal. Wearing masks, not ideal. Staying home, not being able to hug my loved ones, not ideal. But this is where we are. And there's common sense things that we can do to help keep Minnesotans healthy and safe. We know we can't be perfect. We can't live in full lockdown. We have made a lot of adjustments so that we can try to live as effectively as we can and striking that balance with being healthy and being safe. And I appreciate Governor Walz's leadership, his thoughtfulness, his care. He takes criticisms from both sides of the aisle. He gets criticized for opening up too much, and he gets criticized for not opening up enough, and most of us in this business think that's probably when you're kind of in the right space. So members, this is an important time. This is not a typical emergency for which our laws were originally envisioned, but it is an emergency nonetheless. And I strongly encourage members a red vote on this resolution.
Senator Gazelka renews his motion to adopt Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 1. A roll call has been requested. Seeing no further discussion, the Secretary will take the roll. Members in the retiring room, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in room 303, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in the President's office, please come to the chamber to vote. Members in room 323, come to the chamber to vote. Members in room 237, please come to the chamber to vote. And members in room 206, please come to the chamber to vote. I will call on Senator Jasinski to report the votes of the members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Anderson votes aye.
Anderson P. votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Hall votes aye.
Hall votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Newman votes aye.
Newman votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Rosen votes aye.
Rosen votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Rude votes aye.
Rude votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Senjum votes aye.
Senjum votes aye. I will now call on Senator Kent to report the votes of the members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report I report no for Senator Bach.
Bach votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Carlson.
Carlson votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Clausen.
Clausen votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Eaton.
Eaton votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Klein.
Klein votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Lane.
Lane votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Latz.
Latz votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Little.
Little votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Newton.
Newton votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Rest.
Rest votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Sparks.
Sparks votes no. Senator Kent.
I report no for Senator Wickland.
Wickland votes no. All members having voted who have the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 36 ayes and 31 nays, the motion prevails and the resolution is adopted. Remaining under motions and resolutions, the Secretary will read Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 2.
Senator Gazelka introduces Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 2, a Senate concurrent resolution relating to adjournment of the Senate and House of Representatives until the public interest warrants reconvening.
Senator Gazelka.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 2 be adopted.
To that motion, Senator Gazelka.
Mr. Speaker, members, similar to the previous concurrent resolutions adopted in the regular session this year, it permits the body to adjourn for more than 3 days. This resolution will permit the Senate and the House to adjourn today until July 20th, except that each body can act independently before July 20th to assemble before that date. The Speaker and the Majority Leader will make this determination independently for the respective bodies after providing advance notice to Minority Caucus leaders in the respective bodies. This resolution requires 1 day of notice if the decision is made to assemble in session before July 20th. And members, there's a few bills that we're working on. The bonding bill that I believe will be combined with the tax bill, a spending bill very, very similar to what was in last session, and hopefully a police accountability bill. There may be some other ones, but those are the big ones. The House needs more activity to try to make those, to get those done. We would get those from the House, and so rather than just come back every day, we would likely come back next Monday for those bills that hopefully they've passed, and then we would pass them all. So that's the intent. It's really that we're letting the House, they need more work.
Discussion on Senate Concurrent Resolution number 2. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is all a bit unorthodox, I believe, in the way we're doing these things, but I appreciate Senator Gazelka's description of what we're trying to do here and in trying to be efficient as we move forward. So I encourage members to support this resolution.
Any further discussion on Senate Concurrent Resolution number 2? Seeing none, Senator Gazelka renews his motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, say no. We will take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations. Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails and the resolution is adopted. Remaining under motions and resolutions will revert to the second order of business, executive and official communications. The Secretary will read the communications.
Secretary Ludeman, pursuant to Rule 8.1, all appointments requiring the advice and consent of the Senate that were referred to committees during the meeting of the 91st Legislature and not finally acted upon by the Senate are returned to the same committees to which they were previously referred. Any appointments returned to a committee not organized pursuant to Senate Resolution number 1 are instead referred to the Committee on Rules and Administration. Jeremy R. Miller, President of the Senate.
There's no action required on those communications. Remaining under motions and resolutions will revert to the eighth order of business, introduction and first reading of Senate bills. Listed in today's introduction calendar are Senate file numbers 1 through 23. These Senate files are given their first reading and referred as indicated. Senator Gazelka.
Mr. President, I believe we are recessing for 30 minutes.
Senator Gazelka, before we do that, I believe you have a motion to lay some Senate files on the table. Perhaps Senate file number 1 through 12.
Out of the Senate resolution.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Senate file number 1 through 12 be laid on the table. Sorry about that.
On that motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
Do those other motions.
We'll take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations.
Okay. We got some other messages. Yep. 4. We got 4 in the room, we got 5 in 237.
Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. Remaining under motions and resolutions will revert to messages from the House. The Secretary will read the messages.
Mr. President, I have the honor to inform you that the House of Representatives of the State of Minnesota is now duly organized for the 2020 second special session pursuant to law. Patrick D. Murphy, Chief Clerk, House of Representatives. Senator Benson moves. Whoops.
There's no action required on those messages from the House. Remaining under motions and resolutions, we have some authors' motions to be read by the Secretary. The Secretary will read the authors' motions.
Senator Benson moves that the name of Senators Housley and Pratt be added as co-authors to Senate File Number 3. Senator Housley moves that the name of Senator Hoffman be added as co-author to Senate File Number 5. Senator Abler moves that the name of Senator Bigham be added as a co-author to Senate File Number 7. Senator Rarick moves that the name of Senator Simonson be added as co-author to Senate File Number 17.
We'll take those authors' motions read by the Secretary as one motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, say no. We'll take a brief pause to gather the votes of the members in alternate locations.
I got 5 and 237. Mary. I got 11 from Clean. Mary, you got, excuse me, Senator,
Just authors' motions.
she had 11. 4 from the recount.
Receiving a sufficient number of aye votes, the motion prevails. Members, before we go to Senator Gazelka to recess, are there any announcements? Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. President. The DFL caucus will gather at about 3:15, so please watch your emails for a Zoom link.
Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're about to recess to the call of the President for about 30 minutes. Senate GOP, we don't plan to caucus. We already caucused these 3 bills. I think it's 3 bills. But we want to allow the minority to communicate about the 3 bills with their caucus. So, Mr. President, I move that we recess to the call of the President.
Senator Gazelka moves that the Senate recess to the call of the President. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The motion prevails. The Senate is in recess.